All right, so we're here again. Got Paul here, and we're doing another live stream. This is the fourth night in a row that we're doing live streams. It's not getting old. I'm enjoying it. Paul, you missed the last two. But
I didn't miss the last two. I was tuning in.
Okay.
Okay, so I was a viewer.
Okay.
You know.
So we had a great stream last night. We had Derek Picker from Reef Automation on. We talked about FMM accessories.
Yep.
And it was really cool. We had more than 200 people in the live stream, so that was really cool. We do broadcast this both on Facebook and YouTube, so if you guys want to know when the live streams come on, sometimes I'm not really good about putting this out early. And
you mean you don't give advance warning
I
very
don't give
well?
too much advance warning.
Never could have imagined.
So there's no better reason than that than to go ahead and click the boxes for getting an alert and signing up and having it show up first in your Facebook and all of those things, because you never know what's going to happen. And today, if we get enough people in here, and I think we're going to easily pass it, Paul.
Oh, I have no concern.
We're going to give away one of these. Is this on screen? I think so. It's got to be. It's in my face.
That's an Apex EL.
An Apex EL we're giving away,
Yep.
Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't plan these things. We just decided at the last minute to give this away. Paul and I were chatting before the stream, said, what are we giving away? And this was sitting here because we're going to talk about it a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, we'll just give that away.
Why not, right?
Why not?
Be sure to subscribe so you know these things are happening. Terrence gave a lot of descriptions there. We call that subscribing. You can
Well, it's different. So on YouTube, it's subscribing.
Yes.
And on Facebook, it's like the page, and then you select at the top
that you have to
show
see
it first.
Yes.
Right.
So you always get notified.
Yep, absolutely. Right? And then you won't miss out, because who knows, maybe I'll give away a spontaneous hat one day or something. You know, just
You're
come on
gonna
for
give
10
away a
minutes.
hat?
We might give away a hat tonight. I think the hat is so popular. It's a thing now.
It's a thing, and I like that. You know, the funny thing is the hat always used to be available on our web store pre-COVID.
Yeah.
You know, and then COVID happened. I shut it down.
Shut it
down. You know, so a lot of things now are out of stock on our web store, and the hat was always available, and now no longer.
Right.
You know, so now we only are going to give them away.
We don't get that many of them in. Paul just asked me before the stream, hey, do you have those coming in? I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, how many? I'm like, 24. We don't get a lot of them in. It's not because we're cheap. It's because we want to keep them, you know,
limited edition.
Limited edition.
LE,
Absolutely.
LE. It was.
We get a ton of shirts in. We get hundreds of shirts in, but not hats.
Did you ever do the LE thing when you used to subscribe to LE corals and get on a waiting list?
No.
You never did that?
I've never done that.
It was back in the day.
So like if you wanted to be one of the first like 100 people to get...
Steve Tyree.
Oh, it was a Tyree thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tyree had all these things,
and then he would release them at different times, right?
He would release them at different times. You'd have to get on a subscribe list, and like I never got lucky enough to get any of the ones that I wanted. But,
yeah.
You know.
So it's orange and gray days. And there's been a lot of stuff flying off the shelves.
Yes.
A lot of stuff.
It has been moving, right? And we
a lot of people are doing the Apex thing, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Core 20s are selling like crazy.
There's no better time. I mean, you get 10% off on all Neptune systems.
But the Core 20 is $299, $50 off.
Right, then we have all the Doorbusters,
yep.
Right? So the first Doorbuster that you and I announced was the Core 20, which is now at $200, so $50.
$299.
$299, excuse me.
Yeah.
So it's at $300, right?
A few people had it wrong in the beginning, so some people got an extra $20 off on that one.
Cheers to them.
Yeah.
You know?
During the stream.
And then with the live streams that I wasn't on, you announced an AFS special.
Correct. I think you have one behind you there.
Ooh, no, I put it over on the table over there. I'd have to like get up and get it. You know.
Well, it's an AFS, and usually the AFS only comes with a sample of our crossover diet food. Mm-hmm. But right now, the $13 package of food comes free with the AFS. And all of these are, by the way, until Cyber Monday.
No, until supplies run out, Terrence.
Oh, that's true. Thank you, Paul.
Yes. So, and they have been moving like crazy. You know, we've been checking inventory with multiple resellers, and all of them are very pleased right now with how
there's still a good amount of inventory on most SKUs, but it is moving fast. So, you know, we got a number of days because we started this early. Mm-hmm. So we're now on Sunday, and there's now Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There's 8 possible days, but you never know what's going to happen to those
while
inventory
supplies
numbers.
last, or all the Doorbusters are while supplies last. 10% off is while supplies last. If they don't have it in stock, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to give you the 10% off. So,
and then the last night we basically announced that through all of Orange and Gray days are 15% off.
15% off.
Yep.
Right. And the FMM accessories are things like flow sensors, optical sensors, PMUPs, solenoid valves.
What else?
I don't think I'm forgetting
sensors. The power supply. It's not exciting, but
I got a power supply.
A leak sensor.
Oh,
the leak
how
sensor.
could I forget the leak sensor?
So I knew you forgot
super
something.
important.
Those are on 15% off. So we're doing just tons of things like we've never done before for Black Friday and starting it early. So it's Orange and Gray days all the way from, Friday we did it last Friday, all the way through to Cyber Monday, which is on the 30th of November.
And I mean, the reason why we did that for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons is it's just a different year, right? We wanted to try something new. The big reason why we wanted to do it is just to make sure our local fish stores had the time also to be able to get people into their store safely. Right, and be able to make those sales.
Yeah, I mean, not having a bunch of people rushing in, to get their inventory on Friday, all at once is definitely desirable given everything that's going on. So, and they're stocked up too, by the way.
The local fish stores are in stock. We had some great specials for them to be able to make sure they had Neptune systems in stock, particularly the reagent 6.
Yeah, they had pallets going to these stores.
Yes.
Some stores, multiple pallets of Apex gear. Yes,
and reagent 6s were a big part of that. So I know they're not online everywhere, right? That's because we're constantly doing shipments to online, and you guys are just ravenous over these reagents. I understand. But
what's good to note too for them, Paul, is that you don't want to stockpile these because they do have an expiration.
They have a sell-by date on them, Terrence.
Well, but they do expire.
Yes.
Okay, so they have a sell-by date that you can look at and know that that when you buy it in the store, how fresh it actually is. And then from that date, you have about how long?
1 year from that date.
1 year from that date.
So if the sell-by date is May 2021,
right?
That means it'll be good May 2020, right? Then 2021, the sell-by date. I confused myself just now. It's good till May 2022.
Right.
So
you don't want to go stock up on 5 of those things and then only run it at 4 tests a day because
if you bought 5, it's okay. Go ahead and just change the testing amount.
Do 8 tests a day.
I mean, you probably want to be at 12 at that point. So
reminds me, I'm out of reagent A right now on my system. I need to change the bottle.
I changed my reagents on Friday, didn't calibrate, so my numbers are a little weird today.
Yep,
but that's okay.
Yep, for sure. I discussed actually, what was it? Was it yesterday or the day before? I discussed the. Or maybe it was on Farm Boys Reef. I discussed the calibration solution and what we go through to make that, and everything else. And
so you pulled back you pulled back the curtain
a little bit. And I basically said, hey, you don't know, maybe it's possible we'll sell that as a separate item so people can use it to really kind of baseline even their manual tests,
right? I mean,
or other equipment.
I would love to make that a retail product. I think there are several emails to you about me wanting to make that a retail product.
But we have to be able to have enough volume capacity to be able to deal with all of the reagent kits that we have to do.
We spend a lot of time on that reference solution, and there are other reference solutions out there that we're hoping that were maybe even going to work for us at some point. And we just found that they didn't. They didn't measure up.
They do not measure up.
Literally.
Yes. And there's a whole process behind how we do it. But anyway, we did talk about that a little bit. Is there any questions yet, Vincent, before we get a little further into this?
Vincent's got to crane his neck a little bit.
Yeah. Should you calibrate the Trident after replacing the reagents, or do you wait a couple days, Paul?
I'll take that one. So reagents in general, right, are made in batches, right? Some of those batches have a certain level of consistency. When you are moving from a batch of reagents to another batch of reagents, it may be a similar batch, and you'll see that your values don't really change that much. In that situation there, you probably wouldn't want to calibrate for 2 or 3 days, right? Make sure that you demonstrate precision first. Okay.
So what you're saying is like, okay, today on my, the last couple of days on my on the reagents I had in there were say 8.5 for my alkalinity and 450 for my calcium, and so I swap it out. I start running a couple of tests with the new reagents. and I'm at like 8.45 and 440 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're virtually at the same
That
level.
means that the batches kind of work the same,
They're
right?
similar,
They're kind of
yes.
similar batch. But at 525 on my calcium, then I should calibrate?
So if you were to see a sudden jump after changing reagents, the first thing you want to make sure is that the installation was appropriate, right? And you did everything, and then there's not any air, you know, or whatever, right? But if you see a big jump, you need to demonstrate that jump shows precision. So if you were to do a couple tests in a row.
So you want to have a couple of tests, like
if you were to do a couple tests in a row,
speak.
yes. If you were to do a couple tests in a row and you saw 525, 510, 530, right? You just demonstrated precision, okay? And at that point, I would recommend that you calibrate.
Right.
Okay? And that's only if you see a big jump. Do you want to run a couple tests back to back like that and then calibrate?
Okay.
And we try to put a piece of paper in there, you know, for batches of reagent that we know, like, hey, this is way different than everything else is out there. But not all of those get the paper, right? But if you see a big jump, the first thing you need to do is demonstrate precision. And if it's not a big deal for you, like, I know my calcium's not really that far off. I'm just going to do a couple tests.
Right.
My alkalinity was about the same.
Well, the other thing too is if it's close, but maybe it's not spot on to where it was. Yeah, maybe save that calibration solution, because who knows? Maybe in a month you just want to do a off-the-cuff calibration just to make sure everything's good.
And another thing to mention about that too is, well, this doesn't match this. This doesn't match this. This doesn't match this. This doesn't match my ICP. Whatever, right?
Right.
Okay. When you open the calibration solution, we put extra in there, right? You can test that against your HANA. You can test that against your Salifert test kit. But the important part is that you need, as soon as you open that solution and you're calibrating, that's when you want to test it. You can't go back 10 hours later.
Yeah, instead of letting the genie out of the bottle, you've let the atmosphere into the bottle, basically.
And that atmosphere plays a big role on what those levels are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did see one question out there. I don't know if Vincent can put it up, but basically somebody said, hey, if I get an Apex, can I run another tank, just buy more probes and run another tank off of it?
Well, absolutely.
And absolutely. And this is actually, it's one of these interesting things, because there's been some like negative marketing things from another company out there to say, oh, you got to have all these modules, right? Well, if you want to run your one tank, no, you don't have to have any modules. But the modules thing is actually a benefit, because for like $85, you now can monitor temperature and pH on your second tank.
You mean you only have to purchase what you want?
Correct, exactly. Yeah.
Novel idea,
yes, I know.
So, exactly. So to add another tank, most people are going to add a PM1.
Right.
And they're going to add an Energy Bar 8, 4, or
Correct.
probably an 832.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, this is the other thing I wanted to express to people is, first of all, monitoring is the most important, right? So if you want to add another tank, let's say it's your quarantine tank, most important thing for you to know is the temperature in that tank and the pH in that tank. Right? And so basically you buy the $85 PM1, you buy a $30 temperature probe, and you buy a $60 pH probe or whatever it costs. And now
If you
you're
want to
monitoring.
monitor the pH. I mean, really what you want to monitor in those quarantine tanks is the temperature.
Sure, temperature is number one.
It's number one. Right?
Yeah, absolutely number one.
So,
and again, if you only have a couple of things that you want to control, you don't have to go and pony up for the Energy Bar 832. There's a $120 solution that gives you 4 controlled outlets. It's the Energy Bar 4. And when I kind of revealed that last night or the night before, we had a couple of comments like, man, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, I saw those.
Yeah.
It's the Energy Bar 4 is a great bang for your buck, right? And it lets you do those high wattage devices.
Yep.
Right?
So any other questions out there, Vincent, before we move on to the next topic here? So, okay. So another thing that's kind of it's just like a misunderstanding, or maybe it's a thing that's been out there in the zeitgeist of old and just hasn't gone away, is that the Apex is expensive.
Expensive.
It's just super expensive for me to get into an Apex. And it boggles my mind a little bit, because that kind of says I haven't done my job well enough to get the word out that how do you figure that it's expensive to get your feet wet. And that's why I have the Apex EL out in front of us here right now, Paul, because I kind of want to keep stressing that, especially also because it's orange and gray days. But a lot of people go, oh, it's going to cost me $1,000 to get into an Apex. It's so expensive.
No.
And it's not. I mean, at full retail, right, not during orange and gray days, this is $500, gets you into the Apex EL, okay? Orange and Gray Days, it's $450. This is basically the cost of an XR15 light over your tank.
A single light.
A single light that all it does is light up your tank.
Right.
So I don't exactly know where that comes from, but hey, why don't you? You're the best at opening this up. Why don't you open it up for me, Paul?
I mean, it comes from a lot of places, right? It was $800, right? And so people always think that $800 is the direction to go in, and that may be your needs.
Right.
It may not be your needs, and if it isn't your needs, the Apex L is a great alternative.
Absolutely. You know, you can get the monitoring of all your devices, get the monitoring of your pH, get the monitoring of your temperature, the critical aspects of monitoring your tank, get your feet wet, and you know, you're in the Apex ecosystem, so you can add stuff as you wish. The biggest differences that there are, or the key differences between the Apex and the Apex EL, is that with the Apex you get salinity monitoring, ORP monitoring, and you get 4 0 to 10 dimming or variable speed ports. Those you don't get on the Apex EL, but what you do get is you get 8 controlled and power monitored outlets, along with a temperature probe that is like triple sealed, like it lasts forever, and a double junction pH probe. So
You made that a little difficult on me, buddy.
I know.
You didn't prepare the security tape. So on every Apex you open, one side is going to have security tape on it, one side will not. And in the Apex L,
yes,
we first have the Apex L itself.
Yes, that's the main brain of the Apex. It hangs on a couple of screws. It tilts up so that you can access all of your, all your cabling underneath.
Right. So it has this nice turn guy here.
And it basically forces you to have drip loops, right? So you're not going to have water running down wires going into any kind of device or any kind of plug or anything, because everything goes straight down.
It's got the Aquabus ports, the temperature port, the pH port, the Ethernet port. So we don't have just Wi-Fi solution. We have a solution that has Ethernet as well as Wi-Fi, because nothing's going to be more reliable than the Ethernet cable.
You know what's so interesting? Because I like to look at reef keeping history, like of products and everything.
Yeah.
And there's some people out there that talk about how much more expensive, right, the reef keeping hobby is today. And so I have in my office a 1996 marine, I can't remember the name of it, marine and freshwater, whatever it was called, FAMA, Freshwater and Marine Aquarium, that's what it was, magazine.
Yeah.
And back in the day, there was no internet really. I mean, there was in 96, but nobody was really selling anything. And so you'd flip through these catalogs, just like the computer catalogs.
Kurt was already thinking about it.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And so I have one in my office that actually has one of the original Aqua controller ads in it. And I looked at it, and I'm like, are you kidding me? For $300 in 1996, all you got was something like this.
That's it.
That is it. It had an LCD screen on it, yes. Okay.
For buttons. For
buttons, but it didn't have like cool web software. It didn't have all the probes. It didn't have the the control with the energy bar. Nothing. $300 in 1996. Adjusted for inflation, that's got to be at least over $500 now.
It had an X10 port, and there weren't any X10 products that we necessarily made. It would just give you the opportunity to interface with other X10 products, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's how you get Kurt on a live stream, going through the history of Aqua controllers.
I don't think he'll do it still.
You don't think he would do it?
I don't think he'll do it.
All right.
I don't think he'll do it. Anyway, so the Apex EL does come with 2 probes, right? So it comes with a double junction pH probe. So it's not some, bargain basement pH probe, single junction thing. We went for like the best you can get with the Apex EL. When you look at a probe, you can kind of tell that they're double junction for the most part, because you'll see like a stopper in the middle. And in kind of a pedestrian way to discuss what double junction means, what I like to tell people is think about the jewelry store that has 2 doors, and you got to go through one first and then close it before you can go into the next one and then go into the jewelry store. So basically what happens over time is the reference solution inside your probe becomes polluted with the actual seawater that it interchanges with. So if your actual junction, which determines what's going on, is yet another door behind yet another door, it has to go through the first junction, go through that solution, then go through a second junction to actually get to to be read, which means it's going to last that much longer.
And if I'm not I mean, I could be wrong. I don't keep that cool, but I believe we're one of the only aquarium manufacturers that that includes that standard.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? A lot of other aquarium manufacturers that
more.
use pH probes are always going to use single junction, and the single junction, you just at the end of the day, you just have to calibrate more. They don't last as long.
Absolutely.
And you can't rely on their results as much.
And you, like I said, most of them you can look inside and you'll see this stopper, and you'll know whether or not. And if you don't see that, like I think most of the pinpoint probes, for instance, are all single junction probes.
Yep.
So, and they cost more. They cost about 20-30% more to the end user to have one.
And there is a temperature probe, all right?
Yes.
And this is a temperature probe that we kind of assemble at Neptune Systems,
right?
So the thermistor, which is the part that actually measures the temperature,
yes,
is encased in epoxy in here.
Yeah,
right?
so what an interesting thing, Paul, is that anybody can go buy thermistors, and you've probably seen them. I mean, if you're a DIY kind of guy, they're in a little black encased material. And the crazy part, though, is that seawater wants to get into everything. And it will. It will eventually, by nature, get into everything. It's horrible stuff. And those particular temperature probes are not really made for seawater. And this was actually found out, believe it or not, by Neptune Systems early on, like 20 years ago, right? Kurt found that they just failed. Right? Those, if you look at those little black ones, they're like little ones. I think the Reef Keeper had them.
They're just these little tiny probes.
Little tiny
and
black capsule.
They are encapsulated,
yes,
but there's only one level of encapsulation.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. So we take that and we put it inside an acrylic tube, and we seal it behind, an inch on either side, more or less, of marine epoxy. And then we seal it in shrink tubing and marine epoxy, the cap onto the end.
Yep.
So if you put just the cap, for instance, into the water like this, you basically have 3 levels of protection of the actual thermistor in there. You've got the cap, you've got the marine epoxy, and then you have what the manufacturer gives you in the thermistor.
And what's nice about this too is that marine epoxy does heat up and cool down pretty quickly, but it doesn't heat up and cool down like as quickly as if it was just the thermistor in the water, right? So now when there's a little bit of heat that gets on due to a heater or anything like that,
it's kind of a side benefit, huh?
It is a side benefit too, is that it allows your measurements to become just a little bit more stable as a result.
Right. People are asking on the stream, how often do you replace a temperature probe? I mean, and somebody else mentioned mine lasted 10 years.
They're extended.
I can tell you right now, the Reef Keeper probes, I don't mind saying it because they're now out of business anyway, so it's not like I'm slamming them. Those probes would go out in a couple of years, okay, because they don't have that extra protection on them. The the Apex probes that they come with, we have people running those, already, 10 years, some of those probes.
Yeah, I think I do these weird things where I continue to use the same one just because I'm weird like that, right? And so I still actually use the Apex temperature probe from my classic purchase in 2011.
No way, you're a liar.
I do. I absolutely do. I still have an Apex light on my desk, right, that's still on, that a customer claimed never worked and was always having problems. And since 2013,
you just were testing it on your system.
It just continues to run, So never had any issues, right? It's just these little things.
Yeah, someone says their temperature probe went out in 3 years. Okay,
it happens.
It happens.
Well,
to be honest with you, again, if you submerge the entire temperature probe, it's going to have a little bit higher chance of failing earlier than if you just submerge the cap.
Yep.
The 2 inches of it.
If water can enter from the top of it, it's just that more likely.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a year, but it's just. Salt water wants to get into everything.
I saw another comment on here that said, "Oh, everything's fine with the Apex until my internet goes out." Right?
Really?
Yeah. So the Apex is one of those products out there that if the internet isn't working, the Apex is just still going to continue to run. And if you absolutely needed access to your Apex while the internet was out, there's a solution. You can just basically say, put it into hotspot mode. Right. Pull out your phone and then connect to the hotspot.
Well, you could do that, or I mean, just if your local network is still running, like you're not, if your local network is running, you just run local mode. You just go to apex.local or whatever the name of your Apex is .local, and you'll pull up basically the same interface as you would get on the internet.
Exactly. And
so it's not like a Fishbit. It's not like these other products that
needs a cloud in order to operate it or the internet.
Or whatever.
And it's really easy to get it reconnected to your network. There's a tech tip video out there that works for both Android and iOS with the Android app that pushed. And about 2.5 minutes, bingo.
Sorry, I'm reading some of these comments. I can't repeat some of them, but they're pretty funny. About the temperature probe, sorry.
Oh,
I just
good
broke
one.
character.
Good one. Good one. You broke. You broke.
One of the things that comes with the Apex EL is the Energy Bar 832, and this is a product entirely of our design, specifically for use within an aquarium. And the first thing you're gonna notice when you pick it up is it has some serious heft to it.
There is a lot packaged into the Energy Bar 832.
There's a lot in there, and it's built it's stuffed pretty tightly full of features.
The name itself, 832, kind of describes the product itself, right? And so first off, there are 8 outlets.
Yep.
All 8 of those outlets are mechanical relays that are rated up to 7 amps. Okay, so each outlet can handle up to 7 amps. The total Energy Bar itself can handle about 15 amps.
Right.
Okay. Now, I don't recommend finding that 1200 watt heater.
One thing I can tell you though, what I'm going to tell you though,
Yeah.
first of all, is that's what they're rated at from us. But everything that we do, we kind of underrate, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to rip this open and look at the relays, they wouldn't say 7 amps on them.
They are much larger.
They're much larger than that, but that's because we understand that. I mean, number one, people are going to sometimes make a mistake and plug something in that's over current than what they should use on there. And by the way, when you do that, this is going to blink.
Yes.
On the front,
For
which is really cool.
Yeah.
And so they often do that, but they are also kind of overbuilt, so they'll last longer.
Yes, they can handle inrush currents very well, right? So your quarter horsepower chiller should be no problem on these, right? Bigger chillers than that, I'd probably go to the EB4.
A question we just had was, why are there 2 here that look a little bit different? I think early on we had some different ideas, but it is really just a design issue.
Right.
That it was part of a design concept that we had to kind of break up the design a little bit. I think there was some thoughts of changing something a little bit different on 2 outlets, but ultimately not.
Yeah. And the total Energy Bar itself can handle 15 amps. Most household outlets are only rated for 15 amps. Some outlets might be rated for 20 amps.
Has a circuit breaker.
Yep.
So
has a circuit breaker
this
on
is
it.
a really important thing. And really, one of the most important things to talk about is it is ETL rated, okay? And ETL, just so you guys know, is not just ETL, right? It's not all the same, right? There's actually a standard that that you run against when you have any kind of UL rating. ETL is a nationally recognized testing laboratory.
It's very similar to UL.
Right. So there's three key national testing laboratories that are certified to then use UL standards to then test against UL standards. So the Energy Bar 832 was tested against the standard 1018, okay? I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's about, it does involve aquarium use,
Yes.
which is completely unique. Any of the other power bars that you'll see out there, for instance, there was the old, it's Coral Life, the old Coral Life one that was out there. It was also certified.
Yep.
But it was certified under another standard, which is called a power tap or multi-tap or something like that.
Right, and what's funny about those power tap multi-taps is they're designed to be around, the standard itself says it can't be permanently in location.
Correct. It's not meant to be mounted in location. They're
Right.
meant to be something like you throw on your garage floor or what have you.
Exactly. And
they're not supposed to be used in wet environments.
Exactly.
Saunas, wet, jacuzzi areas or aquarium areas.
So if you care to know, right, go ahead and look up that standard 1068. Go ahead and look up another standard of a power bar, 1018, sorry, and look up another standard and read it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It took us a ton of work.
Oh, ton of work. And I'm proud to say that we're the only ones that used to have the word water in there with aquarium and all this different stuff.
Absolutely. It was a ton of work. It was worth it. The factory's certified, all of that. It requires, if we just make a small change even to the design and the product, we have to go through recertification again. There's fireproof standards on the plastics. All of this, so it is a big jump for us to be able to get that certification on the 832. So that's the 8 outlets. So tell them about the next thing.
So then there's the 3, okay, and the 3 are these OneLink ports, these little square connectors, and those are for running OneLink Neptune Systems products. OneLink Neptune Systems products include your Trident.
So first of all, Paul, the OneLink, what it is it's a 4-pin connector. 2 of the pins are to power the device, and 2 of the pins are to communicate with the device. So basically, You have everything you need in one cable, and you don't need to have power supplies for these devices.
Basically, it removes both the Aquabus cable and it removes the need for the power supply.
Correct.
Right? It's
less power bricks.
It is something that is unique to our product line, the OneLink convention, and there are 3 OneLink ports on there. It saves a lot of headaches.
Absolutely. You plug in a couple of waves in there, and you plug in your Trident. You don't have any other power bricks to worry about. Everything is all completely controlled and powered.
You can also connect your dose up to that. So if you wanted to not use the power supply or the Aquabus cable that's included with your dose, you could purchase a male-male OneLink cable. Okay. You can also connect a Core 15 to it. The Core 15 is an interesting product of ours that it's a return pump that doesn't have a power supply.
Correct.
It is a return pump that gets its power from the power supply that's inside the
And somebody asked a great question out there, how much can we plug into those? So it's not like infinite power, right?
No.
It's not a little nuclear
little fission
reactor.
device,
Basically, there's a 100-watt power supply in there, and what that means is most people, for instance, on their waves are not running them at full power, 100% all the time, right? So you might, between 2 waves, be running maybe 50 watts at most, right, at any one time. Well, then you can run your Core 15 pump, and that's not necessarily running at 100% either. And so now you can run a Core 15, and you can run 2 wave pumps all on one device.
Absolutely.
Without 3 power bricks, like you would have in a normal situation with other power heads or another return pump.
And finally, there's the 2, right? Which is the DC24
Correct.
outputs. Those are just a 2-pin power connector, okay?
Right.
And those allow you to connect things like the PMUP, the solenoid valve, and future Neptune Systems accessories.
Who knows? We have a lot of stuff in the works. So there's one that we know about that's in NSI right now. So if you get an Energy Bar 832, you're going to have something new to plug into it.
And what's nice when you buy those accessories, like the PMUP, like the solenoid, right? You don't need to get a power supply with it, right? All you need to do is to purchase that device. Plug it in here.
Yeah, it's just like plugging into like anything into the 110 ports. It's just now it's a 24-volt DC pump and plug, and you basically can turn it off and on just like that.
Steven made a great point. Adaptive Reef makes some really cool accessories too for the DC24 output.
Yes.
Like an alert, siren tone, all this sort of different stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Okay, so what's really neat about today, Paul, and the announcement that we have, since we've been talking about the 832.
Are we to that point?
We are to that point.
Yay.
Is if you are buying a new Apex, or if you already have an Apex and you're like, you know what, I need another Energy Bar 832, that is the next Doorbuster.
Doorbuster announced.
Normally $279.95, $50 off. While supplies last, or until Cyber Monday, $229.95.
22900.
22900? No, $229.95. Yes.
So
$230, Paul. Okay.
$50 off, right?
Yes.
The Energy Bar 832 from midnight tonight till supplies last.
Yes, absolutely. You know what's so funny about this too? You can, sometimes single controlled outlet devices will cost you $20 or $30 a piece. Well, there's 8 of those effectively on here, and we didn't even get to the best part.
Let's get to the best part. We love this part.
We do.
The ShamWow part we just love.
This total ShamWow.
So the best part about the Energy Bar 832, and Terence and I talk about it till we're blue in the face, is the power monitoring that you can do something with.
Yeah, and I think I've come to the recognition lately that when I say power monitoring, it's really selling everything short in terms of letting people know what it actually does, right?
Yeah.
So describing what it does very quickly after saying the word power monitoring is super important, because there are other devices on the market that monitor power, and you basically can look and go, oh yeah, it's using 2 amps, thank you very much, and go on with your day.
Big deal.
It doesn't help you at all.
No.
What it does on the 832 is it gives you the peace of mind of knowing when a device, a return pump, a skimmer, any device on your aquarium is not running in the manner that it's supposed to run, and you can tell that by how much power it's using.
Right. And that sounds super complicated,
Yeah.
right? Like, well, how should I know how much?
Why don't you show us, Paul?
Well, I can, but I think I just want to also just reinforce this idea that power monitoring in itself is great, but power monitoring that you can be notified about.
Get the alerts.
You don't need to come back and check out and make sure that everything's working the way it should. The Apex is going to let you know about that.
Now, one thing that I just saw a comment on, just in all transparency, the devices that are on the OneLink and on the DC24 are not monitored for power monitoring.
No, they are not.
They are not. Only the 8 outlets on the front. That said, if you had a mission critical device that you wanted to, for instance, a PMUP, right, that you wanted to monitor the power monitoring on, you could use a transformer on that and plug it into one of the outlets, and then you would get the power monitoring on that device.
But that's not all, Terrence.
That's not all. Tell us more. Can we do the screen door in the boat with the spray? Because I really like that.
So devices that are OneLink connected, devices like the Wave, devices like the Trident and the Core, they will all give you notifications if their power consumption is not accurate, right?
Right.
So you can get volt alert errors on 3 of those devices, or stall errors, or whatever appropriate. So all of those devices have like their own AI built in themselves. They deal a little bit with power, but more about how that device operates.
For instance, if your Wave pump is not, or your Core 15 pump is not operating correctly, it's drawing too much current, it will give you an overcurrent error, and you can have an error in your Apex that tells you to give you an alert on that. That's a good point.
But to point it out, the DC24s do not have that, right?
That's correct.
So if you did need to monitor that, the power
it's just a switched 24 volt DC outlet, basically.
Yeah. It's the only dumb outlet on the EV832.
We are at 303.
Woo! 303.
303 in
That's
the
pretty
stream.
good.
You're definitely giving away an Apex EL.
For a Sunday night,
yes.
That's
definitely
commendable.
Definitely giving away an Apex EL. So thank you guys for sharing out the stream. We really appreciate it. So we will be giving a full Apex EL out to one lucky winner and a hat.
And a hat. It's a twofer?
Yeah. Or we could do this. We could say, hey, we've got a hat for sale for $400. You get a free Apex. That would be pretty funny.
So let's get into...
I just want to repeat, $230 until Cyber Monday, or they run out of stock, or your local fish store runs out of stock. So, starting tomorrow.
I did see a comment on there, well, how is stock? We did the best we could. I think that this is going to be the ones that is...
Local fish stores probably got how many? 2 or 3?
They got 4. Some got 4, some got 2, depending on what package they wanted to go with, right?
What I did see online, though, is that there are some of these bundles that are being sold, because I'm getting reports back from all the online dealers, and the bundles are selling, which means they're eating up some of their 832s as well.
Right. So the bundle has the extra energy bar already built into it.
Yep.
So if you have been looking for another energy bar 832 and you know that you need it just tonight, be ready for it.
Yep.
So let's go a little bit into the power monitor.
Yeah, let's show us how that works, Paul.
I think this is important because
one of the things, it came up actually in a Farm Boy Reef live stream I did yesterday. One of the guys there, who I think is maybe a fan of another product a little bit more than an Apex, was like, well, how easy is it to use this? Because I heard that it's all about programming and writing lines of code and all of this, and that's the big thing. Oh, no code. And so, Vincent, why don't you roll it over into Paul's...
Are we on the pad?
Paul can't tell if you're there or not yet.
Okay, cool. So this is my dashboard, right? And right in the center of it is my Energy Bar 832.
So you get a tile right on your dashboard that is kind of like a command center for that entire Energy Bar 832.
And so we can see right off the bat that right now my Energy Bar 832 is consuming 141 watts. It's running about an amp. It's 116 volts.
Now the volts is an important thing too, by the way, that isn't told by other products.
No.
Okay. If you are a person who has uses a lot of extension cords, or your wiring in your house isn't really good, or you got a lot of stuff on one circuit,
or even if you're in an apartment, right, that in the summer and everyone is running their AC units.
Yep. You can actually really, really dampen down the overall amount of volts that you have, and your electronics will start to go wacko. Not just your Apex electronics, but other electronics in your home.
In the summer, we regularly get emails of, because there's an exclamation point that shows up at 108 volts, and then it goes red.
We had it happen at a trade show.
Yeah. And well, we actually were helping the electrical people know, like, hey, this circuit's too taxed, right? And the volt is very important for the power consumption calculation, right? Because that's how watts work. So anyways, you can see all my devices.
The price, Saul, the price for an Energy Bar 832 through orange and gray days is $229.95.
So all my outlets here have names on it. We got radiant power, we got light power.
Okay.
I've got 2 heaters in there. Right now, Neptune Systems, no doors are closed, right? So except the front door is locked right now, of course. But we leave all the doors open right now. And as a result of that, the thermostat that's out in the hallway is also the one that controls my office. And my office gets frigidly cold during the day now.
So now you have 2 heaters.
So now I had to get 2 heaters. So I have 2 heaters in there. I got a little Tunza pump in there. I got my skimmer. I have power for a Trident, one of my extra ones. And all that, right? Mm-hmm. So now I can kind of see how that. I'm like,
Jim
all right.
said, "Why is your calcium so low?" Jim Welch.
Jim, I changed my calcium on Friday, and I didn't have time to calibrate. I know my calcium's fine, so I'm not really concerned. I switched from one.
Like the avatar picture, by the way, Jim. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, yeah. Did he message you what the name of Amy was?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I already forgot.
It's been so long already.
Go ahead and say
San
what it is.
Diego was so long ago. I mean, when Jim was showing off his baby in a in a hotel suite, in like
is that right, Jim?
seedy hotel suite. I mean, it was like those hotel rooms.
That was a special.
San Diego was
all right,
so horrible.
Moving on. We're talking about power.
But it's a live stream. It's fun.
Okay, so power monitoring is very easy to set up, and the way that we're going to do that is hit the task icon, right? The task.
So all of this you couldn't do in the old one. Christian asked, "What's the difference between the new power bars and the old ones?" So everything Paul's about to show you can't happen in an Energy Bar 8 or Energy Bar 4. So that's the big difference. Is the power monitoring is a big key part of it.
Okay, and so we go to the task icon, right? And I got this little guy here. I'm gonna put him away now. And then we can go down. What I always like to do too is there's so many tasks and so many different things you can do. Right now we're concerned about power, right? So that makes it really easy to find.
Okay.
So we're just going to go to power usage alarm. All right. So
it's kind of technical, right? But it basically means, how do I know that something on my aquarium is running the way it is supposed to run?
And so you can read the description: configure power usage alarms for devices on an EB832.
Right.
Exactly. That's what we want to do right now. So we click on that.
It's probably why people don't use it as much as they should, because it doesn't say, how can I tell when my my skimmer's not working?
I get it. Engineers, what are you going to do with them?
I know.
You love them. You love them as much.
But it's power monitoring, guys. So here you go.
All right,
power monitoring alarms.
So basically, this task configures when to send a notification about power. So we're going to say, yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm going to hit next. So then, what outlet do I want to do that on? The one I'm going to choose is my heater. Let's do my skimmer. I always like to do my skimmer because my skimmer is interesting.
Okay.
And so, based on the UI, right, and how my skimmer always runs. My skimmer always pulls a consistent 28 watts.
So just so people know also, skimmers basically, obviously, they mix air and they mix water coming into a pump. The pump is turning. The pump is using a certain amount of power based on friction and everything else that's going on in the pump. If you change either the amount of water going into the pump or the amount of air going into the pump,
the power changes.
The power usage of that pump changes, which means things like your venturi getting clogged or your air line falling off and going into the water so it's not pulling air.
Or the pump
is starting to
suck
suck
and
in
not
air.
working.
Or it's sucking air because your skimmer, your sump level is low.
Yeah.
All of these things are possible.
All of these things will create power that is not typical. And so my skimmer typically runs 28 watts, and Apex knows that. It knows also when I turn my skimmer off for feeding.
So if you run the Apex for a couple of days, it's going to figure these numbers out for you?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? It's going to look at that outlet and then look at the average, and then it actually calculates 2 standard deviations to give the low and the high recommendation. And it also filters out all of the times that it's programmatically supposed to be off.
So you don't get the zeros.
So when I do my maintenance modes, when I do my feeds and I turn my skimmer off, it already knows that, right? And it's not going to calculate that part into the average.
Are you getting a little dry there, Paul? Because there's still stuff in your glass, or is that just water?
I'm just excited about power monitoring, okay? I really like it. So
those of you that go to the Yard House, I made Paul an old 43.
It's good. And then at this point it would say, hey, we're going to send you an alarm when this happens, right? And so I can already tell you right now, if I were to turn my skimmer off, and then turn it back on, it's going to send me a power alert.
Okay.
And the reason being for that is right now is my airline's already very clogged. And so right now, because the pump is so gummed up and all that kind of stuff, I have to introduce air manually to get it pulling air again at this point. Yeah. So I'm not going to turn it off.
Okay.
But if I did turn it off, it would immediately and then turn it back on again, I would get the alarm.
Okay. So you guys out there, if you have an Apex and you've got obviously the 832 on it, if you're not doing these power alarms, try it out on things like your return pump or your skimmer. Give it a shot. Because
the return pump is great because when it's cavitating or if it binds up. And one really interesting thing about a return pump is if you suddenly start seeing that your return pump used to run always 90 watts, now it's running 95, 100 watts, and then you get the alert. That's because it's using more power to push the same amount of water. It's experiencing friction, right? Which means that if you don't service it sometime in the next couple of months, you're going to have a problem where it binds up.
For sure. So, any questions, Vincent, right now that I haven't addressed? I'm kind of watching them roll by here to try to catch them as they spin by.
Yeah, with 300 people online, they go by.
They're going by fast. I know. Here's a good question from Keith Kelman says, Paul, how many 832 bars can be daisy chained together?
Why don't you challenge me on that, Keith? No.
Yeah, exactly. They're $230 a piece right now. Why don't you see how many will work?
That you can do up to 49 modules on an Apex system. That's a soft limit that we have. We could go higher than that, but basically we do that for a variety of different reasons. And no one's.
You like to get the phone calls from the super control freaks when they come up against that limit. Is that what?
Well, the reason so we that's do that? The thing. No one's really challenged me yet, and
I think I saw Derek yesterday was at 36.
I was like Derek, that's child's play. You know.
What's the name of the Apex that we have in the lab that has all of it? It's that huge board. What's it called?
I think like.
Hopefully Russ is watching. He'll chime in. But it's like some monster Apex or something.
So we do have a system that is maxed out and continues to run all the time. We do these sort of fun things. As of yet, I don't really like the idea of having that many modules. Now, if it's all for one tank, okay, great. Right, but if you're at 49 modules, you're probably doing multiple tanks. Yeah. And at that point, I do recommend
some point add another.
I do recommend to spread the love.
Yes.
And you put instead of running one Apex for 3 tanks, you're maybe going to run 2 or 3 Apexes for 3 tanks. And the reason for doing that is A, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, and B, just a manageability aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? When you have so many temperature inputs and everything onto one dashboard and all this sort of stuff.
It just starts to get crazy. Overwhelming. So Juan Melendez asks, can I do power monitoring on more than one device? Yeah, all 8 outlets.
Absolutely.
Are power monitoring. You get a second Energy Bar 832, you got 8 more power monitoring.
You can do this on your lights. So if you were still running T5s or something like that, you can know just based on power monitoring when it's probably time to replace those bulbs. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Mark Cruz says, holy smokes, this is easy. I'm going to do power monitoring stuff from now on.
Love it.
So easy.
Because that's going to save your equipment, which will ultimately save your tank.
Yeah,
and this is something that we've already mentioned, but it's unique to the Apex.
Absolutely.
We do something with power alerts rather than just being like, oh great, it's pulling 2 amps.
Yeah, even the guys from Germany, they do power monitoring on the 6 outlet power bar that they have, but you can just go look at the number, and then that's it. I mean, Derek showed us that in his videos.
I don't think you can graph it, can you?
I don't believe you can graph it.
I don't know, but
I don't believe you can do. Oh, you can also do power cost, savings analysis and everything else.
Are we still on the pad? Or are we full screen?
Yeah, throw us to the pad. So if you want to kind of know, and some people don't want to know, so don't go here if you don't want to know. But if you want to know what your entire reef costs, or you want to start analyzing what running, perfect example that I like to give people is, if it's winter time and you run your tank at say 76 degrees, how much does it cost you to heat your tank? Okay. If you run your tank at 79 degrees, how much does it cost to heat your tank? And do you really care if you heat your tank to 76 or 79 if it's going to cost you $15 more a month?
I don't care.
That's what I mean.
But anyways, to look at that, right? There's this little gear, so you can look at the graphical representation. You can see that we have the watts and amps there. But if you click the gear up in the top right-hand corner of the Energy Bar 832 tile, right? We're going to click that. And so now we get cost of this entire system. So here in the great state of California,
So basically you pay for energy by cost per kilowatt hour. And depending on where you live in California and what tier you're on, for instance, you can pay anywhere, if you're in the first tier, from like 18 cents a kilowatt hour up to, say, 35 cents a kilowatt hour in like the third or the fourth tier.
Yes. So I just put an average of 22 cents. You know, this is my tank at the office. And so I can tell you in a month, this cost to the business of Neptune Systems cost $30.45 to run.
Go.
Now, if I were to change something, right, I could go back and say, okay, what was the effect of that?
You can kind of do what if. So you can
Yeah.
run something for a day and then go back and look at the usage for that day that you changed it. So let's say you're running your tank at 79 degrees and you're like, you know what? Let's run my tank at 77 degrees for a day, and let's see the difference in power utilization that I had and what that would mean over the course of a month. And you know, for me, it's like in the pocketbook, but for some people, they're super, super concerned about the environment and being green and all of these things as well. I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm more concerned about my pocketbook. But you absolutely can do those analyses with the Apex to know how much energy you're using. And if I change something, maybe I changed from a Mag 6 pump over to a Core 20, how much money am I actually saving?
Yeah, exactly. And you can do all sorts of comparisons as well. So right now I compared my two heaters, my 200-watt heaters, and then they alone, when they're running, make up almost 100 watts, almost 75% of my overall power usage.
Wow.
Just those two heaters,
Yeah.
right? Everything else in the tank doesn't really consume all that much besides the light, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, that's a good demo, Paul. Thank you. And as we said, Doorbuster right now starts tonight at midnight. $229.95 for an Energy Bar 832 to get if you want to get a backup one, you want to get an extra one, whatever it may be. While supplies last until Cyber Monday.
Yep.
And
you hit all the points. Yeah.
And we're giving away an Apex EL tonight.
So what do we get? What was the max?
How many people are we up to now?
Right now we're at 298.
Okay.
That's still pretty
So
good.
some people aren't hanging out for the giveaway.
That's a shame because
That's a
you
shame.
have to be present, you know.
Yeah, you do. So, we're going to give away a hat and we're going to give an Apex EL and we're going to shut this thing down because I think
So it's not it's not a twofer.
No, it's not a twofer.
So it's two separate.
Two separate things. We'll give away the most important thing second. The hat.
The hat thing is cracking me up.
I know. It is me too.
I do find
it is pretty funny. So Vincent's going to spin the wheel, kind of the way that I've told him to spin the wheel. Okay. Now, do note if you are international, are we giving it away, Paul? If it's international, no, because it's an Energy Bar 832. It's an Apex EL. Paul's like. So I appreciate everybody out there, in international land. And if you do win, maybe the hat or something, maybe we'll figure out a way to get it in the next distributor thing or something like that. Maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Paul's gonna nod. Paul does all the logistics and getting all this stuff out the door. So.
Oh, now I understand. Yeah.
Okay. So
okay,
do we have an Apex EL winner? Okay. Do we have one? Point to them if you have one. Okay. So Kevin Riley, you need to speak up within the next 60 seconds, okay, to get your Apex EL, or we're going to spin it again. We're going to be hardcore here. You need to be paying attention to what's going on, okay? So that is Kevin Riley, 15 seconds of a kind of a delay we have here, Paul.
Yep.
So Kevin Riley, speak up, or we're spinning again.
I feel like we need waiting music.
Yeah, you need the Jeopardy tune or something.
Yeah.
We need to have our own little tune. Yeah, no doubt. We had a great stream tonight, though. Lots of people on. Thanks for participating, guys, and for sharing the stream out there.
Orange and Gray Days is going great.
Yeah.
This has been fun. I think the customers are really enjoying it.
I haven't been revealing that I'm going to do one the next day, but I am going to reveal I will be doing another stream tomorrow. Maybe around the same time. I don't know exactly, but somewhere around the same time, maybe an hour earlier, maybe at 5:30ish or something. I may have a special guest, so stay tuned.
So wait, there could be more?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, this is orange and gray days. Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean you can't.
So Kevin Riley, man, speak up, man, because if you dropped off this stream, we're gonna spin it again.
That's a shame.
You have 15 seconds.
I'm watching.
Oh, are you? You got
I got it.
You already got it. Okay. So Paul's
watching.
got it, and we're gonna spin again if he doesn't come in.
We're approaching 5 seconds.
Kevin Riley called from his wife to go take the trash out or something. He's gonna come back.
3.
And he's gonna be like, I lost an Apex EO.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Just in time.
You had
literally down to the couple of seconds. Kevin Riley, congratulations
on your Apex
Apex EL. But hey, buddy, if you need an extra energy bar, they're $230 for
or
Orange and Days.
420.
Orange and Gray Days.
Your FMM accessories are 15% off.
Yep. Core 20 is $299.95 on sale, and you can get an AFS for $100 with free food.
Bingo.
There you go. All right, now what you've all been waiting for, okay, the hat, right? When I say the hat, I think I start thinking about.
We need a hat module.
Is it the Italian Job where he talks about the nose?
Yeah.
Is it that the
well,
one?
No, there's another one that has there's always about a hat too.
Well, I think it's on South Park. I think there's a hat thing on South Park.
There is.
They've been talking about.
Bring on the memes.
Yes, yeah, the memes will be coming out now.
Anyways.
All right, Vincent, spin it, buddy. Spin it. Show me who we got. We got Jason Bretsky. Jason Bretsky. Okay, so Jason Bretsky. So you guys that win, you need to send an email with all your contact and address information. That means your address, your phone number, and your email address to sales@neptunesystems.com. You haven't done winners yet, have you?
I've done a little work.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, when was this last stream?
So sales@neptunesystems.com.
I sent stuff on Friday.
How long does he have?
What's that?
How long does he have?
How long does who have?
He's got another 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, for the hat you're talking about. Yeah, we got a minute to win it. Minute to win it.
Minute to win it.
That was a good show. It get canceled, I think. But yeah, so tomorrow we'll be on, I don't know, in the late afternoon, early evening. Again, special guest. There he is. Hoo-yah.
Hoo-yah.
So Jason Bretsky, you're a winner. Kevin Riley, you're a winner. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Thank you, Paul, for coming down to my place.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And having a good live stream. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Vincent, for running the show for us. We appreciate it as always. And, see you tomorrow. Enjoy those fish.
Orange and Gray Days.
Orange and Gray Days, 10% off.